Hello YouTube, this is King77 Carmen, and this will be a review of the W2 Specter from Kotobukiya. This is one of the frame arms kits. This is also my first kit from Kotobukiya. So I'm going to start off with a look at the inner frame. This is the version 1 inner frame. I don't know if there's a version 2 or so on or so forth, just because this is my first kit and there are not very many reviews, well, in English, of Kotobukiya kits. There are a couple reviewers in a different language, and I've seen like one or two in English. So, this is the version 1. It's a pre-built inner frame like the real grades, except it's not injection molded, or not a hypersonic fusion something or other, how they did the real grades. This is pretty much like some guy is sitting there, puts it together, puts it in the pack, puts it together, puts it in the pack. Because it's snap fit kit, I actually had to take this thing almost completely apart and glue a whole bunch of pieces together to keep it from falling apart when I put the armor on it. But that's another story. Oh, knocked the flashlight over. This is extremely articulate. It's, I think, more articulate than the real grades, and it's a lot less likely to break when moving. Head is on a ball joint, which is extremely unlimited. You can do a whole bunch of poses and get them looking a whole bunch with just one ball joint and no other movement in the neck. At the shoulder, where right here in the inner shoulder, it's on a ball joint from my knowledge. I didn't take the upper chest apart, so I don't know. So you got a full range of movement, forward and back, up and down. Then at the elbow, or at the shoulder, you can move out, in and out, and go 360. It's on a peg into a polycap. At the upper bicep is a full-on 360 swivel. The elbow is double jointed. You don't have quite enough to touch his own shoulder unless you cheat and use the open hand and the full-on pivot for the wrist. And the wrists are on pegs, not ball joints like normal wrists from Bandai kits, or at least ones that I have. You can move up and down at the wrists on a hinge. You can go 360. It's on a peg. Since I'm on the topic of hands, he also comes with two open hands and two weapon holding hands, and then two open hands. For waist articulation, it's like on an L joint connecting the upper and lower torso, which this L joint on mine was not attached together in the package, but I have seen others where it is. Mine just may have came apart in shipping. Yeah, that's why another reason I glued most of my kit together. It can sway forward and back at the top joint, forward and back at the bottom joint, and go 360 where it connects to the lower, or to the waist. The waist articulation consists of nada. The hips are the only thing that are technically part of. This has no moving parts besides these sections which connect the thigh, or connect the leg into the hip, or into the lower torso. I actually glued these together because I believe they touch on the inside of this, so I pretty much glue them together. You can move these up. They're on like a track system. You can move it from stationary in the normal position for normal height. You can have it shorter or taller, but it didn't change enough for me to really care, and they needed to be glued in because every time I'd start posing legs, they'd fall off. At the hip, they can go 360 if you move the body. They're on a peg into a polycap. They can go in and out and go 360 at the calf, or not the calf, yeah, they can move 360 here. It has a full-on 180 bend. It has an awesome posable, or awesome solo knee armor, which can come off and comes into play more in the armor. The ankle is on a hinge, and the foot can fall off like that. There again, the foot and stuff isn't part of the W2 kit, or W2 kit. So I took this part, doesn't need to be glued in my opinion. If you're going to be solo posing just the frame, then I would recommend gluing it so it doesn't fall off when you're moving it. It also has an ankle pivot, so this thing is extremely articulate. And you also get some accessories that are just for the frame. I do have to mention that the hands will not be the same with every kit, because these hands are on a separate plate that are, I'm pretty sure, marked the W2 Specter, which is the kit I have. So the hands will not necessarily be the same for each kit. The frame itself comes out with no hands, so I just have to mention that. And with in the same bubble with the frame, you also get this tiny little piece right here, which is an alternate eye, which is pretty easy to. I'm just gonna pull off the head off, which is easy to swap out. You just kind of pull off the bottom chin, and here's more the sensor array version of the eye. And then there's a little slot, or a little slot track that you put it right in, and then you put in the bottom face piece, which holds it in together. It's not very secure. If you're gonna display it with either or, you may want to glue it together. And so you can have the old laser at one eye thing if you want a mono-eyed suit. This is also marked as a 1:100 scale kit by Kotobukiya. So I'm going to first do a little size comparison with the 1/144 or 1:100 scale kit from Bandai of a Gundam kit. This is the 2.0 Master Grade Gundam. I'm going to move them back here, move the camera so you can actually see all of Gundam. Yeah, he comes up to about the vents. So it's really, it actually does get taller when I put the armor on and all that stuff, which I'll do a comparison with it again with the armor on him. So he's not as tall as a 1/100 scale, but here's a 1/44 scale, the double Quanta high grade. So he comes in at a very tall high grade, or 1/44 high grade. He's not quite the same size as a standard 1/144 Gundam, which is normally around 18 meters plus or minus a couple, except for Unicorn. Unicorn is an exception because he's just massive. Him and New. Another story. I don't have either of those kits, so I can't compare him to a 20 meter mobile suit. I only have 18 meter and below. So yeah, as you can see, he's actually taller than a 1/44 scale, shorter than a 1/100 scale. So he's kind of in between, but he's more resemblant of a 1/44 scale. That's about it for this review. The next part will be of the first version of the W2 Specter, because in the kit you actually get 3 kits in one. You get the pieces to make the Gorai, which is the one I'll be reviewing, which is the first set of the armor, which you can get all on its own. And then there's the Ryurai, which is the second set version of the Gorai. And then there's the W2 Specter, which has both those kits in it, plus the parts to make it into the W2 Specter, which aren't a lot. Go over that more when we get to that part. So this is King77 Carmen saying stay tuned for the next part.